Hey everybody, my name is Erica and today I'm going to be telling you what I've been watching recently. There are a lot of shows and movies that I've watched lately and I have a lot to talk about. I'm gonna not go into too many details about the shows and movies only because first, I don't want to spoil anything. Second of all, I just have a lot to talk about and I could ramble about movies and TV shows almost all day, so I don't want to do all that, so I'm just going to do my best to give a nice description and my thoughts about those shows and movies. Alright, so let's just get right into it. The first show that I finished, probably I think in January, maybe beginning of February, I don't even remember, it was end of January. Anyway, it was Ratchet, which is on Netflix. This show has Sarah Paulson in it and I absolutely love Sarah Paulson. She's such an incredible actor and I just appreciate her work so much and how much hard work she puts into everything. So this show follows this woman named Mildred Ratchet who is a nurse and she's trying to get into this specific hospital because she wants to protect her brother and she wants to try to prove that he's insane, but he really isn't. She just wants to protect him. She wants to keep him safe in this hospital under her care rather than being put in prison and executed somewhere else. This kind of takes her on a pretty wild journey of self-discovery and just a lot. I don't even know how to explain this show. Ryan Murphy is their creator and he obviously has done American Horror Story as well as Scream Queens and Glee obviously. I feel a lot of Ryan Murphy's work is very vulgar, very bloody and gory and everything, and this is no exception to that because it's a pretty dark show, pretty messed up, very twisted. It's very emotional though as well, but also really gory, as I said. I was not the biggest fan of it. My favorite parts were obviously the acting and the cinematography. It's a very well-made show. It wasn't my cup of tea. I just wasn't a fan of really the storyline and the concept. It's based off of The Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I believe. I think that's what it's based off of. But yeah, I just wasn't a fan of this show. If there is a season 2, then I'll probably watch it. I just kind of felt the ending, it just felt very Deus Ex Machina. Everything just felt so convenient in how it happened, and I don't know, I wasn't really a huge fan of it. It was just really weird. I like weird things, but this one was just a little bit much for me. So I wasn't the biggest fan, so I apologize for people who really love it, but that's just my opinion. I just wasn't it just wasn't really for me, I don't think. Okay, the next thing that I watched was actually the movie Ready or Not, and this movie I absolutely adored. I went in with kind of low expectations only because I hadn't really heard that much about it, but I ended up really loving it. So this movie follows this woman who marries into this pretty wealthy family. They're a family of game creators, so they created board games and whatnot. Every time someone gets married and they come into this family, they have to pick a game at night and they all have to play it. So this woman ends up picking hide and seek because she drew the card and that's what it came up. She thinks it's gonna be a casual game of hide and seek, everyone's gonna just be looking for her, it's gonna be cute and fun. Little does she know they are actually hunting her. If they don't kill her before the sun rises, they will all end up dying. That's what they truly believe. They think it's this curse on the family and they've never obviously seen it happen, so they have to succeed in trying to kill her. And she is just stressed out when she finds out, and it's so intense, you guys. It's very wild. It's really funny. There's so many really hilarious moments and you're also screaming half the time because you just want this woman to get out of this house. And I just really wanted her to escape and just, it's also pretty gory, but I had a lot of fun watching this and I'm happy that I did. And I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I went in with really low expectations and I was blown away by how much I liked it. It has a good mix of humor and this horrifying intensity. It's very well written and I had a lot of fun with it. And yeah, the acting was pretty funny. I just really enjoyed this movie, so it's a good thriller. I mean, I guess it's more it's a good mix of thriller and horror because it's I said, it's very gory, but there's so much happening. It's your heart's racing, you're on the edge of your seat the entire time, so I really love this movie and I highly recommend it. Okay, the next thing that I watched was the show Imposters. I'm actually still watching season 2, but I'm kind of not enjoying it as much as I enjoyed season 1. So Imposters follows this woman, her name is Maddie. She actually is a con artist. She worked for this guy called the Doctor, and she basically marries people to con them out of their money. So the show starts out, she's with this man named Ezra. He's so in love with her and they really married quickly and everything. And then one day he's gonna go buy her this dog and it turns out that he has no money left and she took everything from him. So he wants to try to get his money back and he ends up teaming up with 2 of the other people that she's conned. One is a woman and one is another man. They end up teaming up so that they can find her and get their mony back. So meanwhile, Maddie is being led to this other guy that she needs to con and get his money, but she starts kind of falling for this other guy who ends up, there's just so much. I can't even spoil anything. I highly recommend this show. I really liked season 1. It's pretty fast paced and makes you want to keep watching the next episode as soon as you finish one. I told myself one episode and I ended up watching like 4 at a time, so I got through pretty fast. But I really loved it. Like I said, season 2 is kind of slow right now. It's not really as like well written, I feel like, as the first season, and it's not like the best show. Like, it's kind of hokey at times, a little cheesy, like some of the things are a little mediocre, but it is really fun and really enjoyable, and sometimes you just need something like that to enjoy. But I really liked it. I feel like it's pretty well thought out and everything just kind of happens, and I thought it was pretty fun, so I highly recommend this show if you're interested in something. While I was watching it, I was also reading The Girls I've Been, so they're both about con artists and like that lifestyle of like taking things from people and whatnot, so I thought it was working out perfectly with how I aligned that. The next movie that I watched is actually one of my new favorites for this year, and that was Promising Young Woman, which stars Carey Mulligan. She is playing this woman named Cassie. Cassie is very cunning, very smart. She's pretty sarcastic, but also really sweet. And she has just kind of not been happy these last few years. She's living at home with her parents, and she's working at this little coffee shop, and she enjoys it. She doesn't really want anything more from life right now. And at night, she's kind of living this like double life. She goes to these bars, so she pretends to be really, really drunk so that these men will take her home and try to make a move on her without her consent. She's trying to get back at these men because her best friend ended up dying because when she was in college, her friend was raped. It was filmed by all these guys, and a lot of them were just like laughing about it. She tried to get help and no one ever really believed her. They just kind of brushed it aside, and over all these years it definitely caused her to have some depression, so she ended up dying. Cassie is just trying to get back at all of these men, and she's really hurt by her friend's death. Cassie then finds out that the man who raped her friend is actually getting married and having this bachelor party. She thinks it's a perfect opportunity to get back at him. I can't really say too much about this movie because I don't want to spoil anything. There are so many incredible moments and a lot of sad moments. It's a very heartbreaking film. I love the writing. I love the acting. Carey Mulligan is just, she's such a stellar actor. You can tell she put so much heart into this, and it's just, the way it was shot was really beautiful. I love the cinematography and just like the colors that they used. I really love the music in it. We have this like nice string version of Toxic, but it's like really dark. It's just such a good movie. Carey Mulligan, oh, she's just so amazing, and I can't really say too much because honestly, I was very surprised by so much of what happened in this film, so I feel like just kind of going into it not knowing anything is really nice and really helpful. So I highly recommend this movie. It's probably my current favorite so far that I've seen this year, and I just absolutely adore Carey Mulligan, and I just love the writing, and it's just, oh man, I was not expecting to like it, because when I first watched the trailer when it came out, I was just kind of like, I thought it was going to be kind of like Mean Girls, like Vampire Academy style. I don't know, I just wasn't thinking I was going to like it. I thought it looked kind of cheesy, but it's really well done, and I highly recommend this film. Alright, the next movie that I watched was The Little Things, starring Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto. This movie follows Detective Deacon and Jim Baxter, who are trying to find this serial killer who is terrorizing Los Angeles. Sergeant Baxter doesn't realize that this case is kind of bringing up a lot of Deacon's past and something that happened to him on another case that he was on. So they end up finding this guy who they believe is a serial killer, and that is Jared Leto's character. They really try to put this blame on him. They're trying to follow him, try to figure out if it's really him or not. It was pretty slow going. I wasn't a huge fan. Like, the acting is really great. I feel like Jared Leto always plays the same type of characters, but the ending is what really takes you by surprise. This is kind of a spoiler, so if you don't want to know, but they kind of leave the ending open-ended, that you don't really know if the guy was actually the serial killer or not. It's a little weird, but it's kind of, that was kind of my favorite part, was that you don't really know what happens at the end. You kind of have to put it back together for yourself. But I wasn't like the biggest fan of this movie. Like, I was just a little bored. I like having female-led stories, which is kind of bad, but like, there was just a lot of men, and it just kind of felt like another like detective story. But I mean, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't one of my favorites. It's definitely a well-made film, of course, but I just kind of wasn't that into it, so that's pretty much all I have to say about it. The next movie that I watched was The Trial of the Chicago 7, and this movie has Eddie Redmayne in it, Sacha Baron Cohen, and a lot of other really iconic actors. Obviously, this movie takes place during the trial of the Chicago 7. They were this anti-Vietnam War protest group. They were charged with crossing the state lines and inciting a bunch of riots, and a lot of people ended up dying really violently in this because of the cops. And I feel like it's really significant for this time, and there are a lot of really important moments in this film that I really appreciated, and it was hard to watch at times as well. I feel like it's a really necessary film to see in this day and age, and I feel like it's a really important subject that a lot of people don't know about. Like, I live here in the city and I didn't even really know about this, and I liked seeing the old Chicago buildings and stuff. Like, I liked seeing what Chicago would have looked like, obviously, since I live in the city. So it was really cool to see that. Like, I think they even showed like the Field Museum and just some areas that were very familiar to me. We go back and forth from before it happened, during it, and then after while the trial is going on, and the trial lasted a really long time, and there were just some really dark moments in this with the judge, and like I said, it's very hard to watch at times, but I'm happy that I did see it, and I felt like the acting was really incredible, and just the film in general was really well made. And like I said, I think it's a really important topic and subject for people to be seeing right now with everything happening in the world. The next movie that I watched was I Care a Lot with Rosamund Pike, and I absolutely loved this movie. I went in not knowing anything about it. We're following this woman who's a legal guardian, and she ends up taking this woman's estate and trying to get this woman to like be in her care to get all this money and stuff. Turns out that this woman is actually related to a bunch of gangsters. So these gangsters are trying to get their mom out of this care facility, and it is just wild. Like, it is so intense, really well made, but I know that it does hit close to home for a lot of people who have been in this situation where someone they love has been taken out of their home and brought into a care facility under a legal guardian without their consent and without really knowing why it's happening. So I do understand why it's hard for a lot of people to watch this, and I have like that perspective as well. But I did really enjoy this movie. I loved the lesbian romance because I was not expecting that. I like the intensity. I like that it's very dark and morally gray. Like, you don't know who to support in this film. There's one moment where I'm rooting for one set of people and then I'm rooting for the other set, and like there's just so much into this, and the ending really like took me by surprise. So I don't want to say too much because you just have to watch it, but the acting in this is absolutely incredible, and I just had a lot of fun watching this. Like, I was on the edge of my seat and I was like shouting to myself a lot, so I highly recommend this movie as well. The next movie that I watched was Mink, and this movie has Amanda Seyfried in it, Lily Collins, Gary Oldman, a lot of really well-known actors. This movie takes place in 1930 Hollywood. We're following Herman Mankiewicz as he's trying to finish his screenplay for the film Citizen Kane. He's an alcoholic and he was in an accident, so he's bedridden right now, and like Lily Collins' character is there to help him write this. So Amanda Seyfried is playing Marion Davies. So her character and May kind of had this like special little relationship, like this bond. She inspired his writing for Citizen Kane. Basically, we're just following how he got into this situation and like his past, and then how he's writing it now and how that's going, and like people are kind of mad at him because he's taking a long time. He's been really struggling with his alcoholism, and it really puts a damper on his career, but it turns out, you know, everything works out in the end. This movie, I really appreciated the fact that it was done in black and white and it looks like it was made in that time. I like that it takes place in 1930s Hollywood. I loved Amanda Seyfried's portrayal of Marion Davies. Like, it just feels so, like, she really dove into that role and that character and that person. Like, she just really took it into herself and just made it her own. I just really liked the production design and everything. Like, it just felt like it was really taking place in that time, and you just felt like you were in that world with all of them. I was kind of bored, honestly, by it. Like, it felt kind of long at times. It's a very interesting movie, and I liked the storyline, and it kind of was nice to get this other perspective on this time and following like the screenwriter and everything that I didn't really know anything about. So anyway, that was a decent film. The acting was incredible, and I really loved the way it was filmed. The last film that I watched most recently, I actually watched it last night, was Nomadland, starring Frances McDormand, and this movie follows this woman named Fern. She was working at USG, which was in Empire, Nevada, and when that company decided to close, it ended up shutting down that whole town because it's a very small town. They had like 250 people, but then it like was at like 750 at one point, but they ended up completely eliminating that zip code, and everyone in that town had to move out, so they lost their homes and it just became a ghost town. We're following Fern as she starts to become like a nomad, and she's living in her van, traveling around, trying to make ends meet. She has to take these little odd jobs around. She ends up working for like Amazon, and then she works at like the little camp where these people can park. So she's really inspired by Bob Wells. He's a big inspiration to these people to become nomads and live this simplistic lifestyle. And it's really beautiful. I love how natural it was. It just felt, I'm not sure if it was improvised a lot, but it kind of felt that way. But I feel like I think that they used a lot of real people and life stories in this film, which was really beautifully done. I love the way it was shot. It's very subtle and very just lovely. Like, it's a really beautiful film. The shots are incredible, and the scenery is absolutely gorgeous, and it's a really, like, it's just a really touching story, very moving. It's very thought-provoking and very realistic. Like, it feels like everything is happening in real time, not that it was like a film. Like, it feels very documentary-esque. The acting, of course, is amazing. Frances McDormand is just such a beautiful performer. She's so authentic on camera. Like, it doesn't even look like she's struggling at all. She's just herself, and it's so beautifully done. It's a really powerful film and storyline, and it was dedicated to the people who did lose their homes when they were living in Empire and they had to move on. I feel like people might think it gets boring, but I was just really interested the whole time. Alright everybody, those are all the movies and shows that I've been watching recently, and that was a lot. I think that's like my biggest haul of movies and shows. That is all I have for you today. If you like this video, be sure to give it a nice little thumbs up. If you want to keep following me on this booktube journey, please subscribe to my channel. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ERRRR. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you soon with another video. Bye!